I am so thrilled to welcome Bill Goodenrath, who agreed to be the interviewer for this conversation. Bill is a glass scholar and artist who has lectured, taught, and worked with glass for a very long time. He is the resident advisor, and I love that title because it shows the faith that the institution, the studio at the Corning Museum of Glass has placed in him at the Corning Museum Studio of Glass. He is somebody who I like to describe as a glass empiricist, and I love a good empiricist because they are the people who teach us and who kind of get the knowledge from making. And Bill, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this, and I'm going to pass the word on to you.
Thank you, Katja. It's great to be here, and it's so kind of you to ask me to be part of this. And it is a great event to have you all together to get a tour of the show that Doug has carefully put together, selected himself from Lino's warehouse in Seattle, and we can hear about the pieces from the man himself, Lino. And we go back a long way. Lino and I met in 1982, and I was visiting Murano, and I'd been told that there were a couple of people in Murano who were friendly to Americans and might receive me well. And I showed up at Lino's factory, the Effetre factory, at about 11 o'clock one morning. And he was busy working at the end of a line of many glass blowers and artisans making a huge chandelier, a huge modern lighting fixture. And at the end of the session at noon, Lino chatted with me for a few minutes, and he said, come back tomorrow around 10 and then come to my house for lunch. That's pretty hospitable, isn't it? That's pretty amazing. And I went to the factory the next day, watched Lino for a couple hours, went to their home, and was immediately faced with an entire squid that had been sectioned. It looked sort of like a biology experiment. And I think it was a test. I've always thought that sepia, that polypo, was a kind of a contest. It was kind of to see if I was really tough or not, because it had a little bit of olive oil on it and a little bit of vinegar. And of course, I loved it. And Lino and Lina were just learning English at that point. And they had this funny little electronic translator. And I'd been studying Italian for about a year, and I could sound kind of like I knew what I was saying, and I could sort of slightly understand. And we met in this wonderful common ground of food and hospitality and glass. And we've been close friends ever since. And I have a very, very brotherly feeling toward Lino for whatever reason. We meet on so many different grounds, and we've traveled a bunch together over the years. And I think I might be a person reasonably qualified to interview him and talk about not just the show, but some bigger aspects of his work and his thoughts on life and glass. So we're going to begin by doing a tour of this show. And as I mentioned, Doug handpicked each object, and Doug is going to lead us through the gallery in a series of still photographs that I think will look better than a video. And Lino, first, I'd like to say thank you so much for being part of this and doing this. So great to see you.
Thank you.
And well in Murano.
It's okay. It's wonderful weather.
Good. You're in your museum about 2 or 3 steps from your house on the north shore of Murano. Is that right? You have that beautiful view of Venice.
Yes, we have wonderful things. Yes. No, we are very lucky. We have a beautiful spot. Beautiful.
Nice. Well, Doug, I'm going to ask you to say hi, and let's begin the walkthrough of the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the journey. It was my great privilege, really, to be able to handpick each and every piece for this exhibition. I've spent days going through Lino's archive, which is an overwhelming experience in some ways, and came out with some surprises. In fact, we just learned about 15 minutes ago that one of the pieces even surprised Lino. It had been so deeply buried for so many years that he didn't recognize it. So that's part of the pleasure. My goal in putting together the exhibition was to really cover what I felt was some of the most exciting work for the past 2 decades. And in actuality, looking at the dates, the pieces span 23 years of making. And there are 39 pieces in the exhibition. It's a formidable amount of work and some very complex work. As we all know, Lino's work revels in color. He's a brilliant colorist. He has great joy that he radiates through the color in the work. And I think during this period that we've all been going through, it's especially appreciated. And the shapes and forms of his work oftentimes surprise people. One of the pleasures we had while we were installing, we were working late at night, and outside was dark and the lights were on inside. The pieces were looking pretty dramatic. And periodically we'd hear rapping from the front window, and I'd turn around and people who I'd never seen before, just local neighborhood people, would be going. So that to me speaks of the almost universal appeal that his work has. The more you know about glass, the more impressive it is. But you don't have to know anything about the technical aspects of glassmaking to enjoy the pure beauty and joie de vivre that he invests each piece with. So right now we're looking at a photograph at the entrance to the show. The front door of the gallery is to the left of the Endeavor installation. Those are 3 very beautiful lyrical examples, fairly recent ones. And then sitting in front very prominently is a vibrantly colored piece, which to my surprise is the only piece I have ever encountered that is untitled. And I don't know if it's because it left Lino speechless when he made it or exactly what, but it's an extraordinarily painterly piece and makes the most wonderful and beautiful projections on any surface when the light is playing through it. Now, as we go into the gallery, this is right behind the first piece. This is a long table, 24 feet long, that we have laid out with a really dazzling display of forms. The first one up there is one of Lino's Fenici pieces. Beautiful, elegant, reaching high. The red one to the right is an exciting one. And then as we go further into the gallery, you can see the panel in the background. Every day I'm explaining to people about the panels, actually, because when I say that the Venice series of blown glass panels, many people look at me and wonder what that means. But in standing in front of it or across from the panel, there is a big cylinder. And for those of you who know glass history, you know that one of the ways of making window glass in early days was to blow a glass cylinder, then to cut it open and flatten it. And that's what Lino does in the making of his panels. Now, this is a piece that we were having a conversation about the other day between Lino, Bill, and ourselves, and wondering at the title. Katja, perhaps you could pronounce it.
Lino can pronounce it. It's Spigo i tondi, Lino, is that right?
It's a perfect Spigo i tondi, but means a round corner.
Right.
And what does round corner actually mean in the Venetian vernacular?
Spigo i tondi, but means practically round corner, smooth life. No, not to be rushed. Don't be very friendly, accommodating too many things. Okay, everything is fine. Practically, what to me is everything is fine, everything is great. There's no corner.
I think that piece really radiates that kind of a feeling. One of Lino's gifts, I think, is instilling pieces with recognizable imagery and feelings, even though they're abstracted and radiant. Now, of course, this, like so many of the other pieces in the exhibition, if you were to turn it around, which unfortunately we can't do right now, has a completely different personality from the other side. Now, one of Lino's classic series is the Saturnal, and I felt very excited when I saw this one. It's one of, I think, the boldest, most energetic pieces.
Yes.
Right, that we've had the privilege of showing. Katja, do you want to make a comment?
This one is a very one of my favorite because it's a very organic, and beautiful, and colorful. It's a fantastic. I feel it.
And the Saturnal, I believe, uses the encalmo techniques where two
Is that
pieces
right?
are actually fused together. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a two parts joined together, yes.
Okay.
For example, this one, the Venetian here, we do in Pilchak with the color from Bullseye.
Beautiful aspects of this Venetian are the orange canes that, if you were to gently run your finger across the surface, actually protrude from the surface. It's a very tactile piece, exciting visually, but something very inspiring to actually touch.
And so, Lino, you were saying that this piece, the color is from Bullseye, is that right?
Exactly. And then also the technique we use is very unusual because for the first time we do between the Morini, we put the sound coil together, and then we pick up a Morini and coil together. We have an incredible pattern. They're very interesting, and the color, they are fantastic. You see, it's possible to see through a little more close. You see some beautiful detail.
And it also makes wonderful projections onto the walls. The panels are translucent, and it gives great depth to them when the light's shining through them.
Yeah.
Now, sitting in the center is one of the most appealing endeavors that I've ever seen. It's long, it's elegant, it has beautiful canework, exquisite carving, and a wonderful, graceful shape. Now, most people, when they give a quick look to the endeavors, they say, oh, that's obviously inspired by the Venetian gondolas. But Lino had told me he had also been somewhat inspired by the America's Cup boat, the famous Endeavor, and the aspirations that it represents.
Because then I am in love with the American Cup. When before the American Cup became too much televisive, it became so popular. I found the American Cup in the newspaper very, very little news. Well, I remember Corey's Endeavor, incredible liberty. We have a great when we lost in Newport with the Australian two is a disaster for me. First time.
Now, accompanying the Endeavor is to the right here is a beautiful Medusa piece inspired by the Medusa jellyfish. And if you've ever seen a swarm of jellyfish just gently floating in the ocean, I would say that you would be reminded of Lino's piece after having seen it. But to the left of that is a very different kind of a panel, not a blown glass one, but a fused one. And Lino, could you speak a little bit about that one?
I think I enjoy always to do bidimensional work. I try many times, always I try to do because I love it. Also, the meantime, I don't like to throw away anything. When I do the composition, for me, it's I go a little bit in trance because it's not easy to do the combination, the work together. For me, it's beautiful, enjoy to do, but stressful the meantime. For me, it's fantastic.
So wait, so Lino, do you gather like these canes somewhere and then one day you say to yourself, okay, I have a lot of canes here. Let me see how they work together, or how does that work? Can you describe the process a little bit more?
I try the first time we do the experience in 93, 94 in Bonsai.
Mhm.
And then we have a big, huge experience in 97, 98, probably, in Bonsai. And then we put incredible number of the cane. And then after we have we do one show, and then the difficulty to do, give it the title. At one point, I realized that for start one drawing, we need one spot, one white paper. And then I started to think something, I give it the size, the thing. And then I give it the title of the show at the time, La Carta dei Sogni, the paper dreams, because when you have something to start, and then you have the white paper, very difficulty to think what's going to do it.
Right, the blank canvas, right?
Yeah, exactly like you want to write one letter, and they was to say something, dear what, and that happened to me. And I do many things like this. I don't make it too much, many drawing, many sketch. I just do it. That's all.
But this piece is dated 2019. So just for example, would these canes made in 2019 specifically with a body of these panels in mind, or did you use canes that you already had?
No, we do the cane in different ways
specifically.
we have the color, the blue. They are totally different the way we used a long time ago. Yeah, we do
Lino just made one comment that resonates with me. He said, I don't make sketches, and he's confronting the blank canvas. Oftentimes, after having watched him work, I get the same impression as when I've watched great jazz musicians playing and improvising. And when they become one with the music, as Lino oftentimes does, become one with the glass. Now, these are two beautiful mandala pieces.
Yeah.
Doug, may I add something?
Yes.
Doug, may I add something? So this business of to what degree Lino plans things out or doesn't plan things out reminds me of a great story that one time Lino was teaching at the studio at the same time as Mark Matthews. And if you don't know who Mark Matthews is, he's a great colorist. He makes spherical objects, marbles and spheres of various sorts, with the most sophisticated color combinations that you can imagine that are carefully laid out, conceptualized over a period of years with lots of experiments and so forth. So at a certain point, I'm standing there with Lino, and Mark walked up and said, Lino, I'm curious, do you plan these things out? Do you make sketches and drawings, and do you organize the colors very carefully? And Lino paused and said, "Is possible go crazy." And I don't think I've had a conversation with Mark Matthews in the last 15 years that didn't come up, because it's such an important concept that, yeah, you can plan all of this till you're blue in the face, or you can plan it pretty well and step back and let your intuitions work. And I just thought that was a great quote. It's possible go crazy.
Well, it's a good kind of madness.
It is.
So we used to call it glass madness. So. Now, in the foreground here is the piece that surprised Lino. It was a rediscovery.
And I like it because it's flat. And also, I like they use the Morini, which kind of Morini mixed together. They look apparently casual. They are not too much. They have one kind of line you must follow. For me, it's very important because when you're blowing, you stretch, you must think the material movie and then follow you what you want to express. It's a casual, but not too casual. They have one kind the spiritual line inside.
Well, that piece has elicited repeated comments from people that it reminds them of the paintings of Gustav Klimt. And I have heard that at least a dozen times from different viewers. Now, over to the left of it is an unusual series and sometimes elicits comments from people such as, well, I know Lino made everything in this room, but who made this piece? Mm-hmm. And this is the aventurine glass, which is Katja, and I did a little research. We found not only is it rare, but it was exceptionally expensive glass. We did an equation, a cost equation, and in today's dollars, it would cost over $400 a pound just for the raw material. But it has this jeweled-like effect. And Lino, why did you pick this to make so many miniatures? It almost looks like an encyclopedia of classic Venetian shapes.
I think for two reasons. First of all, because I like the material. Second, because for me it's possible to work alone. And then I think mostly because I like the material and then I work alone, I able to do some small things. And then I like to make a small thing because keeping my hands free, light. And then also it's interesting because this kind of work represents the Mediterranean culture, because we are a little bit some Islamic, some Roman, some Venetian, some, for example, from Lebanese, or some small boat. This one, for example, the Veronese, I blow everything myself, no food, nothing. And then, anyway, it's a joy to do. When it's a little bit difficult, it's true, but it's a very good, you know, when we are alone, sometimes Silvano helps me. I think it's wonderful and it's a joy to work.
A little bit of glass trivia about this piece. Lino said that the name of the glass, aventurine, really means adventure. And part of that is because it's an unpredictable glass. It was an adventure to work with it.
Yeah, and I have to say your description, Lino, reminds me of the idea of an etude, like a collection of etudes, like a study piece.
The material itself is terribly interesting. I agree. It was really popular in the 18th century in Venice, but it dates earlier, much earlier. But that term, aventurine, the venture, the idea was that a company, a studio, a glass furnace would put a lot of money into the raw materials, dedicate a furnace to it, because it takes a furnace to make this. Because the glass is super sensitive to its thermal history, you have to get it to just the right temperature to cook it, and then it has to cool at an exactly correct rate. And that means shutting off the furnace. And so if you did this, you could wind up with either a big pot of very valuable glass or a big pot of glass that wasn't worth anything and nobody wanted to look at. So that was the origin of the title of the name, aventurine. It was a great venture for somebody to make this.
The aventurine, give it the name also, the desert stone, they're supposed to be found in the desert. And they call also, if you go in Antalya and then you buy the aventurine, they, oh yes, we have the aventurine, but it's a stone, it's no glass. But they call it aventurine.
That's interesting.
And Lino, you were saying that it's very easy to overheat the glass and and make the aventurine fail, right?
It's true, exactly. It's true. Absolutely. But depends on how you're working. If you're marble very strong, you push. The more you push, more beautiful became the aventurine. Sometimes it doesn't work like this. No. It's very enjoyable to do it anyway.
Yeah, and we have a comment here from Victoria Bellin saying it also is like the concept of a masterpiece, the piece that proves your skills.
Well, this image just gives you a sense of place. This is where the gallery is situated across the street from us. It's an extremely active playground that is always accommodating everything from amateur sports leagues to tiny tots being led on long leads to play games. But it's in the midst of New York City. It's very pleasant to be able to look out onto a park.
And also provides the window through which people peek in.
Our last shot of this beautiful golden Medusa. And now I will exit.
We will turn it back over to Bill and
the true experts.
Yes, the true experts, Bill and Lino.
Lino, how has the pandemic been for you in terms of? I know you were stuck in Seattle for quite a few months. We spoke on the phone many times when you were trying to get out of Seattle. I'm sure, like many people, there were terrible aspects, and maybe there were some things that worked out okay for you during the pandemic. What was something good that happened?
I think it's that the pandemic, like everyone, the pandemic still to us capoeira the life, the normal life. And then the first 3, 4 months, 5 months, they are very tough. We have a big lockdown in Seattle, and then we have lockdown in Venice, and then the only positive do about that work is that I started to make some stained glass panel, and then making me to survive a little bit. My experience with the COVID is awful. I feeling we have another couple of years to work. We don't work practically, You are younger, it's possible work next year, next month. But for us, I think it's a difficulty.
You were able to finally get to Murano after months, right?
Exactly, yes.
Great. You've been blowing glass for 75 years.
Yes, more or less.
Yeah. I started in 1962, so I'm still pretty far behind you. But you've in the many years I've known you as a goblet maestro. I've known you as someone who specialized. There's Lina. Lina, ciao. Ciao, Lina. Say hi to everybody.
Buongiorno.
Hi.
Hello, Lina.
It's so good to see you.
Nice. Thank you.
Lina, I was telling folks about the time we met when you served me spaghetti. You served me the polipo, and we were talking with that little electronic translator. Remember, that was 1982.
1992. A few days ago.
Last year. Anyway, I think I started in 1946, probably. I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly.
I see. Lina, how is Murano for you? Is it okay?
Oh, yes. It's okay. It's my city, my country.
Exactly.
I grew up here.
Mm.
Yeah, for me, it's like a Murano, but we have some difficulty anyway.
Happy to speak about your work.
It's an amazing thing to walk along the streets of Murano with Lino and Lina, because they know everyone. After about 5 p.m., when the tourists leave, they simply know everybody. It's amazing.
We have a great time, no question. I think the life here is still good.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I think it's good. I think, but besides to work is more complicated.
Venice is too busy.
Mostly Murano. Too many people now.
Many people in Venice.
Yes. You're in the museum near your home. Would you tell us a little about it? It's about 4 or 5 steps away from your house.
The museum?
Yes.
So where we are, and then we have one upstairs when my family do the foundation, Lino Taglia Pietra. and they want to do, I don't know, they ask to them what do they want to do in the future with my glass. We call Fondazione Lino Tagliapietrano, no, exactly. And then we have one big room where they put some my old glass, lamps, goblet, things. It's okay.
Well, I was saying before, I've known you to make goblets for a few years and very, very large things also. Well, the first time I saw you working, you were making something that was probably 1.25 meters in diameter.
My life is a very strange bit because at one point I started with heavy things, no, small things, very small things, mirror. Then I go, they do big things, there's a Guzor Chimere. And then I go, the Galliano Ferro, and they do small things. And then I make a goblet. And they start making the career of the goblet maker. They have a very good reputation. I move it to Benini, I have very difficult time. And then I move it to La Murina, and then I became one kind of director. But there we needed to do everything is necessary to do. And then we do lamps, we do blowing, I blew incredible huge cylinder, 1.5 meters.
Wow.
See, unbelievable. And then I moved the F3, and then I do a lot of lamps. I am tired to lamps. In the evening, I try to do prototype the vessel, the things, and they have a different life. And then I restart. I make a more cup after 20 years, but I never follow. And then I move a different way another time.
I see.
Do a lot of experience.
Well, it's interesting because when I met you, you were working at F3, but you were also the designer. And you also were, at the end of the day, making at least a few times a week, you would keep a worker with you for another hour or two and make, I think you called them unique pieces, pezzi unici?
Yes, exactly.
And that was terribly interesting. And that was really, for me, that was the beginning of this phase of your life, the one-of-a-kind pieces, the pieces that are entirely your own. They're not designed necessarily per se, but they are improvisations based on a huge amount of background and preparation. And for me, that was the seed. And you had an office with, I remember it had a very high ceiling, and you had shelves all the way to the ceiling that had these unique pieces. And they were truly the result of a creative and a very creative mind, but also somebody with a great work ethic. I think one of the things I've always admired about you is you very often, I'll ask you how something went, a meeting or something or other, and you'll say talking, blah, blah, blah. You really have shown, I think, a lot of people in the studio glass world that you can plan and talk and all of that, but you have to blow glass. You have to have your hands wet with the material, so to speak, hours and hours a day to really learn what it offers. And you've done this great combination of learning about the material and being sensitive to it, but also you've got this great technique with which you can make it do what you want. And I think that's an amazing balance you've achieved.
I'm gonna jump in with a question we are getting in our chat. But so this question actually relates particularly to the Saturnal, and Mark is asking, could Lino explain how he creates the ring in the Saturnal? I've never understood how from fusing two bubbles Lino creates this shape. Maybe we can dissect it also a little bit and start off, maybe Bill, by asking you to quickly go over how an encalmo works, and then Lino can maybe answer about the Saturnal.
Okay, well, the encalmo is not the trickiest part, I guess, of the Saturnal. And for years and years, Lino has asked me, because my thing in old glass, Roman, Greek, Hellenistic, Renaissance, my thing is trying to figure out how things were made. And Lino a million times has asked me, shown me a piece and said, how did I make this? And I have to confess that the Saturno is one of those things I've never thoroughly understood. But I'll answer your question in that Incalmo is the business of blowing two glass cylinders at the same time, usually with assistance, and then heating the ends of the cylinders, one attached to a blowpipe, usually the other attached to a punty or another blowpipe, and heating the ends and then joining them so that you'll have a cylinder of clear glass joined with a cylinder of colored glass, for example. So that is the essence of Incalmo. But Lino, can you pick it up from there and tell us what happens when you make a Saturno?
But is first of all, the first Saturno I did because Saturneo, the name they give the Ingegnere Zecchin, the historical, very famous Italian Venetian guy. He's a very historical man when he knows about the Murano glass, everything practically is a wonderful, wonderful. And then I saw in Archaeology Museum in Naples, when we go in the honeymoon, one beautiful bowl with one kind of wrap like this. And they are very intriguing. And then finally, I try many times. And then we have one San Nicolò festival in Murano. And then I make one small bowl like this. It's a spherical shape with one very beautiful shape wing, sharp at the tip, free there. There's only one blow. The original, and then everybody became, many people don't understand exactly what we do, even the big master. At the time, became very successful things. But the Saturno is a two pieces put together, blowing, a crack off, and then you open up the wing, and then when you spin, if you put the pedal, you blow very hard, and you control with the paper or the pedal, and then they come out of the spherical shape. And then if you work in correct way, it's possible to do perfectly spherical with the wing. But it's possible with kind of technique. I tried to do some sophisticated stuff with blowing, touching the punty, blow pipe, close, became maybe two wings together. I tried many times, many experimental work, but became too good.
And the one in the gallery it looks to me somewhat oval, right?
It's oval because I like to do the oval stuff. If we show, I think it's a very, Yep. We have a sparrow, and then we have oval, and then we do a carbon with a clear, and then we do a lot of cane. And then we do one, I think it's supposed to be one sparrow, black sparrow, 1 point.
It has a clear center with an opening on both sides. I don't know how much you can see, but there's an opening on both sides here through the clear center. And then there's a clear wing, as Lino describes it, the closest ring to the center. And then there is a multicolored, there's just, and in greater detail, you would see that there are really fine lines through those stripes that run through the larger part of the wing. Right, Lino?
Saturno oval part born in 1990, practically after maybe 10 years or 15 years, the small one. And this one became quite big. But we do some beautiful Saturn in 1980, but no oval, but we do in round. They will enjoy with a simple white black ink. The Saturnal is a very, we call Incalmo, but the two pieces together. Incalmo is a different story. The Scully, the Incalmo is possible to see in the Speak with Tondi. In Speak with Tondi, you see perfectly what means Incalmo or the mandala. Yeah, we have Incalmo, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, probably 5. But and then we switch the direction, and then we have one color, one side, color on the other side, and then some blue cane. This one is in Calmo, the two cup, the pieces joined together. In this case, we do two spherical things, and then we transfer, we change the access through the one pipe, the another pipe. In the original way, we have the pipe here in the blue, and then we transfer the pipe there. Sometimes, if you do the Medusa, we change the access within Calmo 7 times. 7 times because we needed to do big hole around, and then we transfer a little bit like this.
And once you do all of that, Lino, you probably gather over it one time and then you make the object. Is that true?
We do first, we do the preparation, we do 2 small cup here, one here and one the other side. And then we do 1 small cup here. But this one is with the punti because we need to be the barrel clean. And in this case, we have we calmo yellow. And then we do 1 stripe with Incalmo. And then we do the cup, we close, we open the other side, we cut very well, we put 1 Incalmo, and then we do another Incalmo, and then we do 1 spherical things, and then we make 1 hole exactly there, and then we gather over. Yeah, and then we gather over. And this one is probably more simple to do 1 point.
It sounds a little more complicated than a lot of heart surgery, I think. And also, Lino, at the end, after you do all of this, you cover it with glass again, and then you have to blow it. And I notice you have dark blue here, which is a very soft glass. It gets hot very fast because it absorbs the infrared. You have yellow, and that's a very stiff glass that softens very slowly, and you have everything in between. They're all different. I suppose you have to know what you're doing to get this to blow out like this.
You know, sometimes it's complicated, but okay, I think.
So we have a question here, which actually is going to be kind of interesting because it's a little bit of a quiz. So Margaret says, in the exhibit to the far right front, as you enter the gallery, is a piece that has very precise small black horizontal lines, look almost like ink lines. The lines remain perfectly spaced until they stretch out at the neck. Can he describe the process of controlling those lines?
Lino, would you speak a little about these very, very intense blacks that you've been making the last few years that allow for very, very fine canes?
My black we do in Murano, we do also in Seattle. We have 1 kind, the black, the formula is sulfur and sulfur nitrate, and then iron sulfur with some nickel. And then we have a iron sulfide became at 1 point. It became 1 iron, 1 black, very stiff. It became very, very tense black. If you do some part, you use like to do the amber. You do with the resin, the resin, and it became brown, it became fantastic. And then give it the formula also the gaffer, and the gaffer they do even stiffer. They are with some, they did some dolomite, some stuff. I think we have it's a very beautiful. black. Is a ferrosulfide done with a resin and not charcoal resin.
And the problem with black in the past has been that when the glass is reheated, the black gets hot very quickly because, again, it absorbs infrared very quickly. The clear glass around it doesn't absorb the infrared so quickly, so it stays stiffer. Anyway, the result is that the black tends to diffuse a little bit, bleed a little bit, as we call it. And this is a black that's impervious to that problem. And it's allowed work just in the last few years. If you think, for example, of the work of Tobias Mull and his very, very, very fine lines, that's because of work he did with Lino in coming up with this ultra opaque, ultra stiff black. Right, Lino?
I give it, I provide Tobias Mull with the black.
Right, right.
We send it to him some black. He worked with my black. Master black with the resin because it became brown, otherwise it became little green. If the ground is perfect.
Throughout the years that we've been representing you, Lino, makers who have taken master classes with you have come to me and said, oh my God, it changed my life. So you have inspired so many people over the course of your career. I'm wondering if you would be willing to share the names perhaps of two people who have inspired you and had a profound impact on your career.
The people, okay, I think we have many. I think for sure, for the first time, probably, Archimedes Seguso, probably very, very important is another master in Murano, Giovanni Ferro. Without him, probably I never became master, honest, without him. And then, for a cultural way, probably the big impact I have with Andrei Skopir. And then when became the state, we have some more people. In the state, we have probably, if I don't came the state, probably never, I never have this kind of life. And I must say thank you to Benjamin Moore. They represent a big impact in my life. Deo Julie, and then many people. But I think without them, I think I have an incredible friendship with the Stephen Power. I work with a lot of wonderful people. You know, in my life, I am very glad to meet you, Kasia. Because represent also you in my career. When I have the first show with you in New York, honest, for me, you don't believe it, but it's amazing. I think what it means I do something nice, you know. And then you help me a lot, honest. In very deep way.
Lino, a lot of us know the name Archimedes Seguso, for example, and I know the name Johnny Ferro, but what was it? You were so strong in your, maybe I wouldn't be a maestro without him. What was this strong influence? What happened?
Because when I moved from the Archimedes, also you helped me to become good in America. I don't forget.
Thanks, Lino.
There was a difficulty when you make one name, you forget another three. You know, Tom Wickner, for example.
Oh, Tom.
Tom is very important for some teaching reason in Pirchak. He protected me in a very nice way. Giovanni Ferro, when I go to work in the Galliano Ferro, I am almost assistant in Archimedes Seguso. When I go back at the army, because they have mandatory army, I lost my position, and then I needed to move on in different way and go to work at the Galliano Ferro, and the maestro is Nane Catari, Giovanni Ferro. I know I never did this kind of technique. The totally different furnace, different island from the Archimedes Russo. And then you go to Galliano Ferro, they have the same technique. They work, for example, having, or not even Benini, but also Fratelli Toso, Rabari Toso. They have a different, totally different way, this who's Archimedes. And the first 3 months, 3 or 4 months, he have a lot of patience with me. But I work very hard, and then I wake up 1 hour before, and then I spend the night practically to learn how to make the flower, the chandelier, the leaf, one kind of leaf. We need to do the preparation, and then there are totally different way. I have to gather. I know very well the punti. I have to blow very perfectly, but this kind of technique I never do. I think it's unbelievable. I think it's unbelievable things, you know. And it doesn't make me. If you don't, one point, they think if I able to stay, say no, I take a Lino. I want to leave. Otherwise, if they push me out, probably I never became master. Probably.
Wow, that's a great story. I've talked with you endlessly and asked you endless questions. I remember one time we were on the train to Bologna, and just in passing, I said, "So I suppose the maestro is the most important person in the factory." And you said, I was totally surprised. You said, "Absolutely not." And you said the name of a worker whose name I'd never heard before. That is the title I've never heard before, the Forcellante. And you said the Forcellante is the most important person in the factory.
It's true. The Forcellante is the guy, you know, when you're working, you take the stuff, you eat, don't eat. In our at the time, when you touch the cup with the dolphin, you put the dolphin, you touch, you don't reheat for make it straight. You take it with a fork, you go in the annealing, in the Forcellante, the mat with the fork, take the pieces, put it there, you make it dry, you cooling, and then you move it, you put away everything. But not only for me, for everyone. He take care of 5, 6 people, and we call him a couple. Then we needed to chief, and then we needed one boy take care of him, otherwise, if he became angry with you, it don't help you for some reason. It's very a couple. So now the factory changed completely. We do a lot of satina. Sometimes the furnace we need anyway is a very important thing. So
that was fascinating. And the problem with talking with Lino is that any conversation is the teeny weeny tip of an iceberg, and there's so much depth there that it's always a pleasure being with you and hearing this. But I'll never forget that ride and the Forcellante, that the Forcellante can make your day or wreck your day, or make your career or wreck your career.
When Murano came to work with you, you put the annealing, they move the floor around for check if it's right or not. The guy in Murano making this kind of thing, you do a flipper. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Lino's making reference to the fact that we built a special annealing oven for somebody who was having trouble making things straight. And we made a turntable within this annealer, quite a feat. But he's saying that you don't need to do that if you have the skill of the Forcellante.
Well,
Gotcha.
I think we are going to have to bring this to a close, as much as, we could probably sit here for a lot longer, some of us, and just talk. But I want to acknowledge all the people that have also spoke up in the chat. I'm going to pass the chat to both of you, Lino and Bill, because everybody's saying thank you, and how wonderful it is to see you, Lino, and how much they've learned from you, Bill, and how nice it is to listen to people and just to be in one another's company. We all miss seeing each other in person more often. We are trying to make slow forays into that territory, and we hope that we will see Lino in the United States in the next couple of months. If anybody wants to maybe just say hello, you can unmute yourselves. We can just wave so that we can have a little bit of a moment. But thank you so much, really, everyone, for staying here. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Lino.
Thank you, Lino.
Bye, Lino.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you also to Silvano, who gave up his spritz hour to be with us.
And Lena, thank you so much. So great to see you.
To you and Silvano.
Ciao, Silvano.
Ciao, Silvano. Ciao,
Ciao,
Silvano.
Silvano.